Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Well, hello, my friends, and happy holidays to you all out there in podcast land, whether you're celebrating Festivus or Christmas or whatever other holidays are around. Hell, maybe you just wanted to celebrate Halloween again. I'm happy with whatever you're happy with. Thought I'd drop in with a bonus episode because it was something I kind of meant to do early on, is share some of my writings via bonus episodes, and I kind of mentioned around Halloween that I wanted to do more of that. Don't know how many people listen to the Halloween bonus, but it was that was kind of fun for me. And this one, I've kept it on a theme. I've got two different things to share with you and reasons for the things that I picked. This is all going to be Coyote centered. For one thing, in my chat with magician Joe Ledoux, I had in passing mentioned a performance I did at one point, and having been known for doing a poem from the perspective of Wile E. Coyote. And I had a few people reach out curious about what that was like. So I've dug it out. I haven't performed it in like 10 years, but I mostly still had it committed to memory, but wasn't going to trust myself to do it from memory. So I have it printed out and have run through it a little bit, and hopefully it comes out good. This actually ties to the second thing I'm going to be reading, which was a piece I wrote a while back called Communion with the Critters, which heavily features my real life interactions with a local coyote. And part of the reason that was like a synchronicity for me was because it made me think of how I had been known for this other coyote poem that I did, the Wile E. Coyote poem, because it was well known enough locally that people would always share Wile E. Coyote memes with me online or find Wile E. Coyote related things out in the wild and buy them for me and things like that. So it just became like almost a something I was heavily associated with. And it was kind of funny because when I was writing up my interactions with the real life coyote, um, there was the whole kerfuffle about the Coyote versus Acme Products movie that was supposed to come out, and then it got held back and didn't end up being released, and people were upset about it. Which, of course, that movie was based on a written piece. The plot of the movie was based on the 1990 The New Yorker magazine article, Coyote versus Acme by Ian Fraser. Um, so, and this is kind of funny because when I used to perform that poem, I was completely unaware of this piece from the New Yorker, and I would only became aware of it because people would occasionally mention it to me and say it reminds me of that thing, and other people were less kind about it and would say like I was plagiarizing. Um, Nope, wasn't aware of that article at the time because in 1990 I was 8 years old and not reading the New Yorker. So, believe it or not. So, it was just kind of funny because it was like this article that I apparently unintentionally plagiarized back then for this performance piece that I used to perform that people really liked. And I recorded a version of back then when it was brand new that had no real performance elements to it because I hadn't worked it out yet. That's how fresh it was. But that recorded version ended up in the collections of several local college radio stations, so that would get played on the radio all the time, and so people would be like, "Oh, you're that guy." But the fact that that article that kind of haunted me at the time that I didn't know about resurfaced in the form of a movie that no one ever got the chance to see during the time I was having interactions with a real life coyote was all kind of fun and weird and just kind of the way synchronicity works. So I'm going to start with the poem, which was called A Coyote's Lament, and then I will be jumping into communion with the critters. So here's hoping everyone out there in podcast land has a great holiday and that you enjoy what follows. Dear Roadrunner, I'm writing you this letter to admit defeat. I wave the proverbial white flag of surrender because as much as you vexed me, I must concede checkmate in this grotesque game of chess we've been playing since the early 1950s. You always succeeded swiftly, racing by me, just out of reach, whilst I salivate. Now I congratulate you on your winning this game. My claim to fame, since before I met you, is that I am a certified genius. So capturing you should have been easy. You, my white desert whale dressed in purple feathers. You, my meal on stilt legs, moving faster than the eye can see. Always taunting me, vexing me in my every not fast enough step. It is simply not fair, my avian foe. You see, I am a predator. I need sustenance to survive. More sustenance than a boiled boot can provide. And I'm not really a bad guy, but then again, you never took the time to get to know me. Always speeding out of my life as quickly and spontaneously as you once entered it. Oh, the first time ever I glimpsed your palatable form in a halted step out of a blur, my spirits soared like an acme kite. Drool dropped down like sticks of dynamite from a hot air balloon. But very soon, my bloodlust went from simple hunger and predatory urge to seething rage at your relentless aversion to all of my traps, my grand designs, ingenious plans, and all the weapons money could buy. And while we're on the subject, you know how much debt I'm in. The hospital bills, the outstanding balance with Acme products, lawyer fees for my pending lawsuit regarding a faulty catapult. I'm also under investigation by Homeland Security about my weapons of mass destruction. But I digress. The point is, Mr. Runner, that I am soon to move to a trailer park outside of this desert, somewhere close to a grocery store. Perhaps I'll even get a day job because whenever I see your familiar blurry figure zip by, my heart sinks like an anvil dropping off a cliffside. My rage explodes like a hand grenade betwixt my teeth. My spirits crushed as though beneath boulders. And now it's over. You win. Enjoy the desert, you scoundrel. In my defeat, you've earned it. Signed, Wily Coyote. Certified genius. P.S. See you in hell. Yay, yay, 10, 10, 10. Anyway, that was the Coyote poem as best as I could try to do it again. And also, I'm just now remembering that sometimes people would ask me why I tried to do it kind of Britishy. I don't feel like I did a British accent. I was trying to do the pompous voice that Wile E. Coyote had in the Mel Blanc cartoon, but when I wrote it was kind of in the days before you could readily summon these things up on streaming. So I just kind of did my own version, and that's kind of how it came out. I don't know. Recording it now, I'm not sure how close it is to what I used to do, but I hope people enjoyed it anyway. I'm well past caring if I make a fool out of myself. And I forgot to mention also that part of the reason I wanted to do this was another recent episode, my chat with Jeremy Vaney. In his book about Kundalini, he's talking a lot about animal intelligences, his ducks, and also fish and turtles and pigs, like wild pigs, all kinds of stuff. And in reading his book, I'm like, yeah, man, I feel like he and I are of a similar mind because It reminds me a lot of this communion with the critters piece I wrote. So um, I don't know if he feels that way. Hopefully, I like Jeremy Vaney a lot, so I was unsure if I was annoying him with my questions in that chat, but I hope he enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it if you listened to it. Anyway, here is Communion with the Critters. I have fed the birds at my house for almost as long as I have had a house. Initially, this was more for the benefit and amusement of my cat, who loves to watch from the window, flicking her tail and chittering away as they fly around. I have always enjoyed birds anyway, and seeing who visits my house because of my feeder has been quite literally a magical experience. I got in the habit of throwing what was left over from my cold sandwich lunch at work onto the grass under the feeder each morning for the birds and the squirrels to eat. It occurred to me recently that this daily bread, as it were, is part of a mystical bond with the birds. We are eating the same meal, communing in the most vital fashion. To extend this further, every new cold sandwich that gets made in the morning has its own attendant ritual, with both my dog and my cat appearing out of nowhere for a little scrap of meat. Our sandwich time morning rite has become very important and ties us all together, the critters inside, myself, and the birds and creatures outside my door all partaking of the same broken bread. I had my avian biases. Blue jays always seemed to me to be the bullies of the bird world, and many assess them as such. I was less than thrilled about their attendance at the feeder until one day an injured or sick jay took up residence under my butterfly bush. It seemed incapable of flight and could only hop short distances. Often it would just sit in the grass, pointing its beak skyward or cocking its head strangely. The smaller birds were cruel to it. I softened in my opinion of the jays and did what I could to help the fellow along. Eventually, it got well. Similarly, I had an irrational disdain for turkeys, mostly born out of a joke. I just thought it was kind of funny to dunk on turkeys, I suppose. One day, a lone turkey strolled into my yard and kept coming back. It caused me to wonder why a lone turkey would hang around, as I've only ever seen them in groups before. As it happens, this turkey was a hen with a nest somewhere nearby. Mother turkeys are solitary during this time of their lives and don't stray too far from their nest when foraging. I took it upon myself to help the expectant single mom and bought cracked corn and peanuts to spread on the lawn for her. She came to trust me enough that so long as I avoided looking at her directly, she would come within a few feet of me to eat. Eventually, she stopped coming around, but a few months later, a pair of hens appeared with a troop of over a dozen poults following them. She had returned to show me her babies. Upping the ante in risk factors and moving away from the feathered friends of my locale, I developed a friendship with a young skunk. I have always loved skunks, and juvenile skunks are particularly adorable. Fear of getting sprayed causes most people to revile them and run away like a character in a Pepe Le Pew cartoon. I have always found them to be most reasonable if you talk to them. A simple hello goes a long way, and once a skunk is greeted, it tends to make a decision to stay or go. But it won't be startled, and you should have an adequate warning if it intends to spray. My skunk friend became perhaps a little too comfortable at my house, which caused trouble with package deliveries. The pizza delivery guy called my phone from the driveway and refused to come to the door. I stepped outside and knelt down to chat with Skunk Friend and scolded him for scaring the pizza guy. The dumbfounded look on his face as I took the pizza and mozzarella sticks put into perspective how odd my connection with the local fauna seems to the average observer. Odder still, where I live isn't particularly a woodsy area. The wildlife that passes through is surprisingly diverse. I've seen deer, possums, hawks and buzzards, groundhogs, bats, and, worryingly, coyotes. Coyotes are a particular concern when you have a dog that barely weighs 10 pounds. As such, he is never outside alone, and he always knows when the coyotes have been around. His hackles go up. He starts obsessively sniffing and barks his threats into the air, defending his turf. A persistent coyote who had unseen partners nearby tested his boundaries for a while, and I chased him off enough times that he gave up. I started, then, to consider the coyote as a trickster figure, although I don't presume to know enough about indigenous beliefs and stories to comment too deeply. I will say I felt particularly silly chasing him off while wearing flip-flops, which made a threatening clopping sound on the walkway as I ran down it. It proved very effective, but it was also clownish. I wondered at the time if I was really chasing some part of myself away and ending up with egg on my face. Later, I received assistance from my skunk friend, who sprayed the coyote and got rid of him for good. The joke ended up being on me, though, as I later realized the canine adversary had tried to rub the spray off on the grill of my car, and I could smell it for weeks afterwards. In the early months of 2024, a new coyote arrived in the yard. He was more persistent than the prior one and behaved more erratically. He seemed to enjoy upsetting Bernie, my intrepid 10-pound hound, as I caught him lifting his leg or defecating under the bird feeder a few times. I began a campaign again of chasing off the interloper, and this time was even more conflicted. My logical and practical mind wrestled with the more mystically and magically oriented realms of my being. I intuitively felt that there was a spiritual resonance to this critter, this trickster, this beast tormenting my dog, but on the most rational level, I knew that wild animals are inherently unpredictable and not to be toyed with. I could tell the coyote, who I named Ozzy, was claiming my yard as his by marking it, and that his presence was not only presented a threat to people and pets in the neighborhood, but also to himself. The best thing for him and for everyone is that he be chased away. I had to close off my kooky mystical ideas about communion with the creature and do what was right and reasonable. The harassment campaign commenced. He was chased away several times, but always made his way back to the feeder. I suspected that voles or mice were active there at night and attractive to him as a snack. He eventually learned that although I made a good show of it and made some scary noises, I probably wouldn't actually hurt him. He tested the boundaries by running just far enough into my neighbor's yard that he felt safe, and watching me from there or sniffing around. One night, out of frustration, I picked up a small bit of gravel and winged it on him, hitting him on the hindquarters. I saw him jump vertically, then run away. Not being in the habit of throwing stones at animals, I felt guilty about it, but reasoned that it was for his own good. The next morning, I threw a bit of sandwich out, went through the sandwich time ritual with Bernie and Lucy, and as I was leaving for work, Ozzy came slinking into the yard. He beelined to the feeder and grabbed the sandwich. I got out of my truck, and he saw me, turned and ran with his mouth full of my offering to the birds, and stopped at the property line. The trickster at the boundary and I locked eyes. I was keenly aware of the line of cars behind me, as parents heading to a nearby school were dropping off their kids. I had made the situation much worse in a practical sense than it had been. Any one of those parents could have seen the coyote and called animal control. What would they have done? I shuddered to think that my adversary could get hurt, or worse, that he might attack someone's kid. This was also the first time that I had seen Ozzy in the light of day, the first really good look I had gotten at him. He was mangy, he was emaciated. One ear was broken, dangling uselessly to the side. He had probably been ostracized from the pack, and had been doing whatever he could to survive all winter, and had only just barely made it through. As springtime was dawning, he stood resilient and defiant at the demarcation point between life and death, wither and growth. My efforts had failed because they had been wrong. The lessons the animals had tried to teach me was brushed off by what seemed so certainly to be a rational concern, and as a result backfired badly. He was too smart, too innovative to be driven away. He calculated that the risk at night was too great, so instead he would come in the morning, which was far worse. I knew then that following my initial impulse was the right thing to do. On St. Patrick's Day, I was fixing a bit of leftover corned beef from a dinner earlier that week into a sandwich, and I found that I had leftovers of the leftovers, which would surely go bad in the fridge. I resolved to offer it up to Ozzy. So that night, I brought the remaining hunk of cured meat out and placed it under the bird feeder, then sat on my steps and meditated a psychic message to the foe who had so troubled me, and who seemed so troubled. I conjured first the word, and then as much of the feeling as I could. Peace. I wished peace for him, and emanated it, with the picture of the coyote in my mind. Bernie didn't bark that night when we went out, and the beef was still there. It was still there in the morning as well. When I arrived home from work, it still sat on the ground where it had been. Then, as I was sitting down to eat with my family, my son said, "Whoa, coyote!" and pointed out through the window of the front door. I only caught a flash of the tannish gray going past the window, but it was him, and he had waited until dinner for our communion. It was quite a while before I saw him again. I began to worry that he had been killed, but he was spotted across town by someone who posted a picture to Facebook. Later still, A much better picture appeared online. Very much the same coyote, but looking much healthier, with a new lease on life. Much less the scrawny, frantic, and mangy canine who so unnerved me at the start of the year. The last time I saw him, I was sitting on my front steps, and he trotted over to the feeder, a mere 4 or 5 feet from me. "Hello, Ozzy," I said. He didn't hear me, I suppose because of his bad ear, so I talked a little more. He looked up and jumped a bit, and then casually scampered away. Animals are great teachers. They can be seen as symbols and archetypes, which they surely are, or as independent entities, or as parts within an ecological control system. Any way you look at them, they provide an interesting corollary to ideas about mortality, compassion, and wisdom. There's no good and evil in nature, there is only survival. An intricate web of connected organisms, life cycles, and seasonal habits promote a sustainable world for us all. The critters of my yard, from the loudmouthed jay to the mischievous coyote, have been beating me over the head with the same message for years. Compassion is the key. Empathy, intuition, and understanding can't really be quantified or rationalized, but they must at all costs be considered, if not strictly adhered to. For simplicity or practical reasoning, we often close ourselves off to these primeval impulses. But what if we didn't? What if each of us prioritized peace? It is certainly something to consider. I'm sure that Ozzy would agree. So there you have it, folks. A little bit of fun coyote stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. Um, I think there was something else that occurred to me about that coyote piece. Oh, maybe an update on it. So this was written in 2024, I think, and uh, yeah, I haven't seen that coyote in a long, long time. But I've adopted other friends since then. I have a trio of crows that I've made friends with in the past year, and they were coming by every day for a long time. Um, I seem to get a pair now. I don't know if they're the same crows, but yeah, got some crow friends. And recently, I've seen some deer. Now that it's winter time, and I haven't seen the deer in a long time, so uh, it's all good stuff. I always welcome all the critters in my yard, and to all of you in podcast listening land, thank you for tuning in to one of my solo episodes. I'm going to try to do these more often. I like sharing my writing, and I know at least a few of you like hearing me read it out loud. So um, if you do like it, let me know what you think. Uh, Smash that like button and subscribe button, as they say. Yeah, good God, I'm not doing all that. Have a great time, people, with whatever it is that you do. Uh, Goodbye.